Part 148. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1471. Bai Shan gave the invitation to Yin Or, and Yin Or smiled and said, "My father has set a wedding date for my fourth and fifth sisters, and they are going to get married in June. I heard that Manbao also invited Lu Huan's sister this time. I want to come out and play." Bai Shan smiled and said, "Man Bao didn't invite her, it was Lu Huan who said that his sister wanted to play with him. I thought they knew Man Bao, so I agreed. If your sisters want to come, you can bring them too. Together." He smiled, "If you want a post, I'll bring some tomorrow." Yin Or nodded, "Okay." The invitation was sent to the prince, who just glanced at it and then put it aside, turned his head and said to the princess, whose belly had grown slightly, "You can prepare some congratulatory gifts. On the 19th, someone will send her a congratulations." The princess smiled in response. With the housewarming gift they gave, Zhou Man was able to gain a firm foothold in Chongyuan Square. When Man Bao and Sanya returned to the mansion, someone happened to bring the finished plaque. Lu Gui was standing below staring at the person hanging the plaque. When he saw Man Bao, he immediately came to salute, "Miss Man, you are back." Man Bao nodded, looked at it, and said, "Mr. S writing is really beautiful." Lu Gui quickly smiled and agreed. Just when they were busy for the housewarming banquet, the conclusion of the court came down. Hoji was sentenced to be hanged, and the emperor left his whole corpse for him, and spared his wife and children. Instead of killing the clan, he exiled his wife and children to Lingnan, and the third generation was not allowed to return to Beijing. Both King Gong and King Guangping were entrusted, especially King Guangping. Not only were their fiefs reduced, but they were also immediately expelled from the capital. They were not allowed to enter the capital again without an edict. Even the people he stayed in the capital were expelled. Several of his aides were arrested and sentenced to beheading directly. Even his Yu family was implicated, and he was accused of many crimes. His biological mother, concubine Min, was demoted to a talented person and moved to the palace. The emperor seemed to be really angry, it was the first time that he had punished his son so severely. Even King Gong did not please him. Although it was found that the 4 cases against the prince had nothing to do with him, he later received a letter from Hoji, knowing that the poison stone was cast by him, but he did not report it. Even if he detained the other party's person, he argued that he would escort him back to Beijing in person. But the emperor counted the time of the first batch of people sent out by Hoji, and he had a hard time believing that Prince Gong really wanted to report it. The emperor has this suspicion, let alone the ministers. Even if the emperor severely punished King Guangping, the critical officials headed by Wei Ji would not let King Gong go. This time, King Gong's uncle Zhao Qiagong didn't speak, so the emperor could only order the King Gong to be temporarily imprisoned in the palace. But no guilt. I don't know if it was a guilty conscience or not, but the emperor strongly agreed to the proposal of the Prince Zhongguan Pavilion to recruit talents, and he also selected several people for him, all of whom were usually close to the prince. The prince was deeply relieved when he saw the list that the emperor had selected. In this way, half of the people who had been recruited before had been recruited. Even if it happens in the future, there will be an excuse. Bai Shan and the others knew immediately after the court's verdict came down, and so did Man Bao. Man Bao was completely in a state of eating melons, but Bai Shan couldn't see it. He bumped her shoulder and reminded, "You forgot, you are also one of the victims." Man Bao, "Oh, if you don't mention me, you forgot, so do they have anything to compensate me?" Bai Shan, "Hoji is about to be executed. King Guangping has left the capital now. Who do you want to ask for compensation?" Yin Or sat opposite them holding a cup of hot tea and smiled, "My father said that the application for merit has already been reported, and your name is also on it. Maybe it is not necessarily a reward from your majesty." Man Bao was surprised, really? Yin He nodded, my father said that it was the first credit to break Master Tang in this case, and then it was you. Man Bao looked confused, what merit do I have? Bai Shan was also confused, yes, what kind of merit do you have? Yin Or shook his head with a smile, I don't know about that, and my father just mentioned it. He put down the teacup, just took a look out, saw the motorcade passing by downstairs, he was a little puzzled, Man Bao, isn't that your fourth brother? When the few people heard it, they immediately leaned over to the window and looked down, just in time to see the unshaven Thursday Lang driving a car past their window with a haggard face. Man Bao couldn't help shouting, fourth brother. When Thursday Lang heard the sound, he raised his head, and when he saw Man Bao, his eyes brightened, and tears were about to burst out, Man Bao. Man Bao could hear his cry, she immediately followed her heart's hour, leaned out half of her body and asked, fourth brother, are you wronged? Bai Shan had already stood up and put down a dime of silver, and directly dragged Man Bao downstairs. On Thursday, Lang also pulled the car to a stop, and the three cars that followed also stopped together. He threw the car to the three sons and ran up directly. The two brothers and sisters met in front of the restaurant, and Thursday Lang hugged Man Bao directly, crying, Man Bao. Man Bao was so frightened that he quickly patted his back and asked anxiously, fourth brother, what's the matter with you? Thursday Lang's face was haggard, and his clothes were a little tattered. When Man Bao touched it, it seemed that he was broken in a fight. The beard is unshaven, and the hair is dry and fluttering in the wind in a mess. If it weren't for Yin Or reminding her, she would never have thought that this was her handsome fourth brother. Shiro wiped the tears on his face, took her hand and said, your fourth sister-in-law is ill, I was about to take her to Ji Shitang to find you, but I happened to see you here, go and give it to her, have a look. The fourth sister-in-law is here too. Before Man Bao could be surprised, he was pulled into a blue cloth car behind. As soon as the curtain was opened, the smell inside was a bit loud. Mrs. Lu was holding Mrs. Fang's upper body. 3 children are lying on their stomachs. Seeing that Man Bao's eyes were also a little red, Mrs. Lu couldn't help but choked out, Man Bao. Man Bao was so frightened that he hurriedly went to see the fourth sister-in-law in her arms, and saw that her whole body was thin to the bone, her face was grey and she was lying in Lu's arms with her eyes closed. Man Bao immediately climbed into the car, what's going on? Bai Shan also frowned, and immediately said, don't go to Ji Shitang, let's go home. There are a lot of medicinal materials at home. If you lack anything, ask someone to come to Ji Shitang to get it. He turned his head to Thursday Lang and said, we moved, leaving a few trucks behind. I'll ask Daji to lead them. Let's go first. After that, he turned around and said to Yin He, we went home beforehand. If you meet Erlang, tell him and ask Lu Huan to send him back. Yin Or nodded, I and Lu Huan will send him back, don't worry. Man Bao had already touched Mrs. Fang's pulse. Mrs. Lu wiped away her tears and said, we were robbed on the way, those who killed thousands of knives wanted to touch the children, your fourth sister-in-law took the knives and killed them. He was accidentally kicked and injured and has been ill since then. See you at 10 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1472. She said, originally, we stayed on the road for a few days to ask for a doctor, but the doctor we hired was not very good. The more we raised, the worse it was. Seeing that it was going to fail, your fourth brother said it's better to hurry up and come back to find you, so we speeded up the trip again. The bumpy days have made your fourth sister-in-law more and more uncomfortable. Man Bao checked the fourth sister-in-law in the car. Outside, Bai Shan and Shai Zilang had already directed the car to cross the car in front. Daji drove the carriage out and handed it over to Shai Rulang, and then left it for the third son and the others to lead the way. Shanji pointed out Shai Rulang to go to Chongyuan Square. Thursday Lang had never been to the side of Day's Road, so he turned into this wide and quiet street. He was a little stunned for a while. Why don't you live in Changqing Lane? Bai Shan said, Man Bao cured the prince gave her a house, and we moved. Thursday Lang's mind was in the car behind, so he nodded, not taking it too seriously. He knew that the people in the capital were very generous, especially the people in the palace, who sent things to Manbao every once in a while, and they were quite expensive. But when he really got to the front of the mansion and saw the gate, he was still stunned. Bai Shan didn't let him stop, but pointed to the gate and let him recognize it, and then asked him to drive the car to the side gate. Just got into the carriage there. Bai Shan jumped out of the carriage to knock on the door, and the next person quickly removed the threshold to let the car in. After a bump, the three children in the car woke up. As soon as they saw the sister-in-law, the three of them cried. Seeing that they had also lost a lot of weight, Man Bao felt extremely distressed. He reached out and touched their heads, jumped out of the car, and asked Chai Zulang to carry his fourth sister-in-law out of the car. She led them to the yard. We didn't know that you brought the fourth and fifth sisters, so you packed a room next to the fifth brother. Bai Shan called a servant and asked him to find the girl in the backyard to get some hot water, and by the way, he also fetched Man Bao's medicine box. On Thursday, Lang put Fang on the bed, and Man Bao kicked him out. Only then did Fang's clothes check. She touched her stomach. When Bai Shan asked the girl to bring hot water and a medicine box in, she gave her a needle to wake her up. Mrs. Lu and Mrs. Zhang came quickly and saw Shai Zilang sitting on the steps with the child in his arms, with the two timidly snuggling beside him. They were so distressed that they hurriedly sent someone to the kitchen to cook some meat soup. She stretched out her hand to take the child in Chu Lang's arms and said softly, "Let's wash the child first." She frowned. Why did such a small child come to the capital? Shiro was also a little regretful. His mother didn't agree that he brought the 8 and 7, but his wife and the fifth wife were reluctant to have children, and he had walked the road to the capital 3 times, so he was quite familiar now. The weather is no longer cold, nor is it very hot, and the trip is just right. He feels that there will be no accident. Who knows that it will still happen? If I knew it earlier, I would have listened to his mother. Thuro lowered his head and wiped away tears. Mrs. Lu turned around and handed the child to Mrs. Zhang, and asked her to take it down to freshen up and feed the child something by the way. The three children suddenly recognized the birth and were unhappy, so they began to cry. Thursday Lang hurriedly cheered up and took the initiative to carry the child down. Mrs. Lu hurriedly entered the room, and Man Bao stabbed the needle. Perhaps feeling the pain, Fang Shi faintly woke up. Man Bao was pleasantly surprised. Sister-in-law 4, are you awake? Fang Shi called out Man Bao in a weak voice, then closed his eyes and was about to faint again. Man Bao hurriedly asked, Sister-in-law, does your stomach hurt? Or does your chest hurt? She touched her body, paid attention to her condition, and quickly got the answer from the expression on her face. Man Bao quickly pulled out the needle, changed the needle method again, and then went to write the prescription. Mrs. Lu stood by and watched, waiting for her to write the medicine and then take it. I'll let Shanbao get the medicine. She looked at Mrs. Lu who was sitting on the side wiping tears, and said softly, do you want to wash up on Friday? Lu looked at Man Bao. Man Bao nodded, and Mr. Lu went out. When Bai Shan got the medicine, he knew that the medicine was available at home, so he turned around to grab the medicine, and after a while, he handed it over to the servant and asked her to boil the medicine. Man Bao and Mrs. Zhang wiped Mrs. Fang's hands and face together. Mrs. Lu asked someone to go to the restaurant to notify Wu Lang and others, and Man Bao avoided people and took out a ginseng from the system. It was a gift from Zheng Gu's apprenticeship. She cut a piece of ginseng and put it in Fang's mouth, then waited. Thursday Lang quickly got in and asked, Man Bao, how is your fourth sister-in-law? Man Bao said, "You have to take it slow." Hearing this, Shu Yulang breathed a sigh of relief, that is, he could live. Bai Shan said outside, "Brother Thursday, go and wash up, we are here." Man Bao also nodded, "Fourth brother go, fifth brother should be back soon." After the medicine was boiled, Man Bao and Mrs. Zhang fed her and drank it together, and wiped her body again. Man Bao checked the time, and moved the needle to her body. When she felt that her hands and feet were not so cold, she pulled it out. She took the needle and covered her with a quilt. Mrs. Lu had asked the kitchen to prepare meals for them, and Daji came back with the convoy. Lu Gui arranged room and food for the third son and the others in the front yard. When Wu Lang came back, Mrs. Lu had just washed herself and the three children. There's no way, Thursday Lang doesn't take children very much at all. The so-called grooming is to wipe the child's face and then feed it. Wu Lang suddenly saw his daughter-in-law and child and thought he was dreaming, but he came back to his senses after a while. Why are you here?" Lu Shi hugged him and cried. "How did they come?" Now she is also confused. Anyway, at that time, Shai Rulang came back with enough tea leaves, everyone was in high spirits, and the farm work in the field was also finished. Because the family is small and the land is large this year, in order not to miss the farming season, the father-in-law is rare and generous. So, as soon as Thursday Lang came back with a few carts of tea leaves, they moved their minds and wanted to come to Beijing. The Qian family did not object to their entering Beijing, because they thought that Saturday Lang would also have to manage when they got married in the capital. But they don't agree with them to bring their children, because several children are still young, and even the 5 heads are still at home. Why do they bring a few children? But both Lu and Fang were reluctant to have children, so they had to take them. Because of this, there was some unpleasantness in the family. She hugged Wu Lang and cried, "It was all good at first, and the road went smoothly, but when I got to a place called Qinggu County, I met a group of people who said they wanted to buy tea with the fourth uncle, and the fourth uncle told the tea it was to be delivered to the capital, and they insisted on buying it, so the fourth uncle could only give them a bag of tea leaves, who knew they wanted everything." Man Bao also came out of the room, frowning and said, "For spy." Lu Shi nodded repeatedly. "See you tomorrow." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1473. Thursday Lang's face was very bad, he didn't bother to find a chair, he sat directly on the steps and said, "It's a family named Luo, and they are very powerful in Qinggu County. We haven't stayed there before, but I brought so your sister-in-law and nephews walked a little slower, and they stayed for an extra day to replenish dry food, and as a result, people were watching. They heard it from nowhere. They knew that the tea in our family was going to be sold directly to the Hu people, so they wanted to force it to buy it." He gritted his teeth and endured it, but he wanted to take all his tea. How could this be possible? So Thuro didn't want to. The Luo family is a local snake, and they immediately blocked their way, but they didn't rob them. Even if they didn't let them go, they had to sell the tea to them cheaply. It was useless for Thursday Lang to find the county government office, and the county magistrate dismissed him directly, saying that he did not participate in private business affairs. Thursday Lang bowed his head and pretended to be his grandson for 2 days, but found that it was useless at all, so he just rushed out with the car and things forcefully. As a result, he was beaten during the shoving, the mule cart they were riding in was overturned, and the 3 children were almost crushed. Seeing that they were carrying the child, the Luo family became teased and hugged the child directly. Shai Rulang had heard from businessmen before, and knew that the Luo family dared not do anything to the children, that is to say, if they wanted to force them to do something, if they threatened them. But Mrs. Fang didn't know. As soon as she saw the child in their hands, and the two sides had been pushing and fighting before, she was immediately scared. So he took out the kitchen knife and rushed up to cut people. She slashed two people, snatched the child with Mrs. Liu, and was kicked away by herself. This time, because of the blood in the fight, the group was taken directly to the county office. Strong dragons can't suppress the local snakes, not to mention they are not strong dragons. Seeing that all the tea leaves in the convoy were impounded, and all of them were put in prison, Xu Youlang gritted his teeth and moved out of Manbao. He stuffed all the cash he had with him at that time to the master of the county government office, and only then did he meet the magistrate of Qinggu County in private. He wiped his face and said with full treasure, "I told the county magistrate in Qinggu County, saying that you are now seeing the nobles in the palace, not only can you see the queen and the prince, but also the emperor from time to time." At first, the county magistrate of Qinggu County didn't know who Shi Zuolang was, and thought he was an ordinary passing businessman, but he brought a lot of treasures. Because the old Zhou family wanted to tell Shun Lang Lang, he specially asked him to give his family's registration. The book is taken. After all, the marriage book needs to use these things. The county magistrate of Qinggu County saw the book and released them. Thursday Lang said with a sullen face, then he said, "Peace, our family sold a carload of tea leaves to the Luo family at a low price, and the Luo family let us go. Your sister-in-law's slashing and hurting people don't matter, they kicked your sister-in-law. We will not pursue the matter." Because Qinggu County is the territory of the Luo family, Chu Hulang and the others did not dare to stay there any longer, and took Mrs. Fang to the next county town to find a doctor for treatment. I don't know if it was because of the internal injury, or because of the fatigue and fright of running around, Fang Shi fell ill immediately. The condition kept coming back and forth, but they didn't get better. They had to take a day off every day. Later, when they saw that her condition was really bad, Xu Youlang gritted his teeth and decided to go to Beijing as soon as possible to find Manbao, so he hurried to the capital. Manbao, the fourth sister-in-law, suffered a little internal injury, but it was not serious. She was frightened, and it was caused by external evil. Fortunately, she has a good foundation and has survived until now. Otherwise, something will really happen. Manbao simply showed everyone. Shiro was also very thin and looked tired. Obviously, he also suffered a serious loss this time. In the evening, Manbao gave Fang Shi another set of needles, and also gave her blood. Fang Shi's complexion was slightly better. The three children were also frightened. The situation was not very good. Manbao also gave them an injection. When they fell asleep, he said, they also need to take some medicine. There are doctors at home, especially those with good medical skills. Even Shi Zuolang poured a bowl of medicine, and then wiped his face to cheer up. Although he sold a cart of tea leaves, he still brought 3 carts. Maybe it's a matter of fact, knowing that even if there are no thieves on the road, there will be a local snake like the Luo family, and Xu Youlang is not as eager to sell as before. As soon as he filled a bowl of medicine, he said to Wu Wulang, "You go to Aludun and let them come to see the tea tomorrow. I asked you to bring the tea from the capital before. It's all in the warehouse. Don't worry, it's well preserved. I'll come back every 3 days to check it out." Before, the tea was piled up in the room where they lived, but after moving here, there is a special warehouse, which is more airtight and dry, which is better than that in Changqing Lane. Thursday Lang got up and took a look, and when he walked from the side yard to the main hall, he realized that the house was huge. He couldn't help but stop. "How big is this house?" Wu Wulang pointed to the front and said, "The yard over there is also our house, this is the middle line, and it is the same as it goes down. The corridor we just came over is also the 4 yards down from the corridor, and there is a big one behind it. Garden." Thursday Lang was a little dazed. "This big house is all ours?" Wu Wulang nodded. He had lived in for 3 days, and he was a little dazed. He said, "The prince sent it? I heard that it used to be the prince's other courtyard." On Thursday, Lang went back to look at the corridor he had just walked through. It is very wide, and you can directly pass a carriage. There are some flower pots and potted plants on both sides of the road. In such a long road, there are actually his houses on the left and right. Thursday Lang swallowed and sighed, there are so many rich people in the capital. Wu Wulang also felt that when he saw the fourth brother staring at the flower pots in the corridor, he said, it was all moved by Manbao and the others in the past 2 days. When we first came in, there was nothing here, and it looked rather disappointing. People are afraid. Manbao also felt that it was not good to be bare in the corridor, so he took people to move and put all the flowers that were bought in Changqing Lane before. Even the peony tree that she had cut bald not long ago was also moved by her. Even if it doesn't bloom, it looks green just fine. If Mrs. Lu hadn't stopped him, Manbao would have wanted to dig some turf from the garden and put it under the wall. It is said that you will not be afraid if you walk through the night with flowers and plants. Chu Hulang walked to the warehouse with a blank expression on his face, stood in front of the warehouse door and saw the tea leaves that only took up a corner, and suddenly woke up with a jolt. He gritted his teeth and said, his grandma's, one day I will fill up this warehouse, and then I cross Jinggu County, I want the Luo family to walk around me. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1474. Friday Lang said, are there many Luo brothers? Otherwise, next time we go back to our hometown, we will call all the third brothers and they will not be afraid of a fight. Zhou Hulang thought about it, you're right, if there are more of them, we have fewer brothers. When I go back next time, I'll see if anyone in the village would like to join us. Brother Huzi had a good fight, but it's a pity that he doesn't have any brothers at home to take care of him. I'm afraid I can't leave home. But Zhou Hu can't do it, so can other people in the village. Originally, Shiro felt that it was enough to bring the 3 sons and the others. After all, it was just a job of driving the car and carrying the goods. They were used to doing it, but only after this time did they realize that it was still not good. People are too thin to beat others. Thinking of this, Shu Yulang checked the tea leaves and there was no problem. When he had dinner, he picked meat to eat. Manbao held down his chopsticks, fourth brother, you can't eat too much meat now, be careful that you will break your stomach. If someone else said this, Shai Zuolang would definitely not believe it, but Manbao said that he had to believe it, so he could only go to the next dish with regret. Friday Lang said, fourth brother, I have already agreed with Alu Dun, and he will come to see the tea tomorrow. Thuro nodded. Manbao finished his meal, put down his bowls and chopsticks and said, fourth brother, we are going to have housewarming wine at our house on the 19th day after tomorrow. Do you have any guests you want to invite? No, Shu Yulang shook his head and said, Liu Dun and the others are only suitable for drinking in restaurants, not suitable for bringing them home. But you reminded me, Li Wei, stay at home to help you these 2 days, and let you too, my sister is going out with me. Zhou Li Wei, why? Thursday Lang lifted his eyelids and glanced at him and said, why, your second sister is better than you, and she will never suffer a loss. The kitchen at home must help you with banquets. Can your second sister's skills be used in the kitchen? Manbao opened his mouth and glanced at the excited Zhou Lijun, but he didn't tell Thursday Lang that they didn't need to go into the kitchen for the banquet on the 19th. After eating, Manbao went to take a look at Fang again, and then she ate a bowl of porridge and fell asleep. Zhou Lijun and Zhou Liru also came to see, and Manbao saw their worried expressions and said, don't worry, you should be able to wake up tomorrow. The 3 aunts and nephews went back to the main courtyard with lanterns. There were only their footsteps on the long corridor. Zhou Liru shrank beside Zhou Lijun and whispered, second sister, are you afraid? Zhou Lijun rolled his eyes, What are you afraid of? This is our home. Man Bao also glanced at Zhou Liru curiously, and then suddenly leaned in with a wow. Zhou Liru screamed ah! Zhou Lejun. Man Bao laughed happily. Hearing Man Bao's laughter, Zhou Lizhong, who almost rushed out, stopped. Across a fence, Wu Wulang yelled at them, Man Bao, don't be scary. Man Bao dragged Zhou Lejun and Zhou Liru away. Back in the main courtyard, Bai Shan and the others just had enough to eat, so they came to look for her. How's your sister-in-law on Thursday? Man Bao smiled and said, although the losses are serious, but at this time there is no danger of life, just take good care of it. Bai Shan breathed a sigh of relief. Bai Erlang asked curiously, I heard that brother cried on Thursday, didn't he? Man Bao, don't you cry too? What's so strange about my fourth brother crying? Of course it's strange, he's already a father, but he's still a teenager, crying, of course it's nothing. But being stared at by Man Bao, he dared not speak. Bai Shan asked, do you want me to ask someone to inquire about the Luo family? Qinggu County is not close to the capital, and the strong dragon does not suppress local snakes. And it's hard to tell who's right and who's wrong these days. I heard that Fang's two knives were not light. Man Bao also knew that it was not easy to get out of office, but she also wanted to know, is this the usual bullying of the Luo family, or is it just bullying their old Zhou family? So she nodded and said, then please. Bai Erlang asked, how do you check? Let senior brother Tang help. How can he be free? Bai Shan said, I heard that Lord Yin is arguing with Feng Shangshu, and he is going to transfer Tang Xuexian from the Ministry of Punishment to Chang'an County to be the county magistrate. I remember that Yi Ziang had a cousin named Liang. State man, I asked him to help me find out. Qinggu County is under the jurisdiction of Liangzhou and is very close. Bai Erlang, why don't I remember? Bai Shan shook his head, how do I know about you? His aunt and cousin studied in Liangzhou Mansion. This year, he came to Beijing to participate in ENC. He is now in the capital. Didn't he meet him outside the imperial prison last time? Bai Erlang racked his brains for a while before he remembered a vague figure, as if he had really seen it, and seemed to have eaten together. The two brothers looked at the younger brother with contempt, but said nothing. Everyone turned around and went back to their houses. Man Bao put down the curtains in the room, turned off the lights and went to bed after washing, and directly entered the system. In a distant time and space, Mr. Mo's world has just entered nightlife time. Of course, as an educator and a research enthusiast, Mr. Mo's nightlife is to teach students and do research. Therefore, as soon as Man Bao entered the teaching room, he saw Mr. Mo, who was looking down at the materials on the opposite side. Since the two sides opened video communication, Man Bao can often see teacher Mo in the teaching room. He knew that Man Bao was only free to go online for classes at night, so he basically adjusted his online time to the evening. As soon as he saw Man Bao, he put down the information in his hand, raised his head and asked with a smile, what's wrong, not happy? Man Bao talked about the family affairs, focusing on her fourth sister-in-law's pulse and the prescription she prescribed. In fact, Mr. Mo couldn't understand why he would become so ill because he was frightened when he went out, but according to the pulse condition, Man Bao Kai's prescription was not bad. What did he think of? He flipped out a book and said, I happened to read a book 2 days ago with a similar illness. Among them, I think there are 2 prescriptions that are good, but they are a little different from the prescription you prescribed. The 2 teachers and students started class. The next day, Man Bao washed up, grabbed a bun and went to the front to see Mr. Fang. Fang was already awake. After a night's rest, perhaps because of Man Bao's acupuncture and medicine, she was able to sit up this morning. She was in a daze yesterday, and seemed to see Man Bao, and now she knew that they had really arrived in the capital. She couldn't help looking out the window and asked, Man Bao, where is your fourth brother? Man Bao came all the way and didn't see Thursday, and after a while, he said, go out. She stepped forward to feel Fang's pulse and asked, sister-in-law 4, do you feel any discomfort today? After feeling it carefully, Mrs. Fang said, my chest is still a little stuffy, and my head is a little dizzy. Other than that, it's gone. Your fourth brother went out, what about the child? The fifth sister-in-law is taking it with you, Man Bao said, the fourth sister-in-law, you are ill, the child is not easy to get close to, and the sickness will pass, so the fifth sister-in-law will take it temporarily. Fang Shi breathed a sigh of relief, I thought I wouldn't survive. See you at 4 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 1475. Mr. Fang really felt that he couldn't survive, and he regretted it badly at the time. Sure enough, he was at a disadvantage for not listening to the old man's words. If I had known, I would not have come to the capital with Thursday Lang. Man Bao took her pulse and changed another prescription. Even in her own home, the medicines are taken from her own warehouse, and she also prescribes the medicines and records the pulse cases as she would treat others. Man Bao went to the warehouse to grab a pair of medicines for the Lu family, and then went to Ji Shitang with Zhou Liru. When she got to the front yard, she saw Bai Shan and Bai Erlang riding their little pony, and she couldn't help but stop. Bai Shandao, we have riding lessons today. Bai Erlang said complacently, we also made an appointment to go out to the countryside for a horse race after school. Man Bao couldn't help but harbor resentment when he looked at Bai Shan. Bai Shan asked with a smile, are you going? Man Bao, go. Zhou Liru said, I want to go too. Man Bao, don't you want to recognize medicinal materials in the afternoon? Zhou Liru was heartbroken. Man Bayu patted her shoulder earnestly and said, study hard, when you graduate, you can go to work if you want, and go out for an outing if you want. Hearing this, Bai Shan glanced at her, turned around and rode on the horse, thinking to himself, this is just a lie to the children. At any rate, when she has 2 days off in 10 days, he has never seen Dr. Ding and the others. Zhou Liru didn't notice this either. When she thought that when she learned medical skills, she could not only make money, but also play whenever she wanted, she immediately became happy and nodded, okay. The 2 aunts and nephews got into the carriage and left home with Bai Shan. Early in the morning, Shiro and Sanzi put all the tea leaves into the warehouse, and they provoked some of each type, intending to inspect the goods for Aludun. When he came out of the warehouse, Man Bao and the others had already gone to work and went to school. The 3 sons and the others took the broom and came out to sweep the floor, and exclaimed, fourth brother, your newly rented house looks so big, so many of us can have one room. Thursday Lang himself had never visited, but he also knew that Mrs. Lu stipulated that the servants could only be in the front yard, and only the girls could go to the back. So he warned, don't go to the back, Mrs. Lu and the others live in the back, and they bumped into the female dependents carefully. The third son said, fourth brother, don't worry, we know. Only then did Thursday Lang wander around the back and found that the mansion was really big. There are even 2 yards in the back that are empty. He turned around and thought about it, but as a result, Wu and Saturday Lang had already gone to the restaurant, and there was no one in the family who knew anything about it, and he had nowhere to ask if he wanted to. The kitchen cooked a little meat porridge for Mr. Fang, and after eating, he took medicine. Zheng brought 2 girls over to see them. One was to bring them familiar with the family, and the other was to help them take a look at the children. Thursday Lang unloaded the things prepared at home. Mrs. Bai, this is what Master Bai and Mrs. Bai prepared for you. In addition to what Bai Ghuo and the others brought, there are also various dried vegetables, and pickled bamboo shoots prepared by Jian's family. The bamboo shoots in spring are crisp and tender. There are many bamboos in the mountains of Qilai village. The Qian family asked Zhou Dalan and several people to break off a lot of bamboo shoots, and pickled 2 large jars directly for Man Bao to carry. Chu Hulang directly removed the various jars in the car, while Zheng looked on, thinking of Qian's pickled bamboo shoots and fried mutton. She also swallowed. Zhou Hulang took a big jar and said to Mrs. Lu, brother and sister, go back and ask the 5th one to find some nice little jars. I didn't know our family moved to a new house, so I asked him to share some of the pickles in the jar. Neighbors send it? Thursday Lang still felt a little regretful. This is specially brought to Man Bao. She likes to eat pickled vegetables mixed with porridge. I will send it to the neighbors later. It is estimated that I will not be able to eat the pickles made by my sister-in-law until next year. Zheng Shi immediately said, our family has only 3 neighbors, not many. After a pause, he said, go further afield, and there are only 7 houses on the next street that are close to our house. Thursday Lang said with a smile, this gift must be sent to at least one street, otherwise, it will be difficult to get along with others in the future. Zheng Shi said, there are only 4 houses down this street. Thura. Lu said curiously, the streets of the capital are so short. Thursday Suro, no, our family is too big. Wu Wu Lang sent the purchases back to the restaurant, and then took Zhou Lejun to find Aludun and took them home. Seeing Thursday Lang, Aludun and the others immediately stepped forward to pat each other on the shoulders and hugged and said hello. During this period of time, they have been staying in the capital, while working part-time, looking for what they need everywhere. They pondered for a long time and found that it was better to buy salt. There is a certain amount of salt that the Central Plains sell to the grasslands, and it is very little. The salt in the grasslands is many times more expensive than the salt in the capital, and it is not easy to buy, so they decided to buy salt and go home. This way they don't have to buy salt on the grasslands and save a lot of money. It's a pity that there are too many regulations in the imperial court, and everyone has a limit on the amount of salt they can buy each time, but it doesn't matter. Shu Yulang hasn't returned to the capital, so they have a lot of time. So recently, they have been working everywhere as coolies, and then when they rented the yard, they went to the salt shop to buy a limited amount of salt, and sealed it in the jar to take back to the grassland. After their daily efforts, they have now bought 2 large jars of salt. Several Hu people were very happy, but they didn't know that they had been targeted by Jingzhao Mansion. They entered Zhou's house on the front foot, and Yin Li knew it on the back foot. Originally, this kind of trivial matter should not have been reported to him, but Zhou Mansion is in Chongyuan Square, and Zhou Man who lives in it also has some identities. The most important thing is that Zhou Man and the son of Jing Zhaoyin's family also have some friendship. So he reported to Yin Li here. Basically, when encountering difficult people or difficult cases in the capital, they will report to Jing Zhaoyin. After all, ordinary people can't suppress those people. Yin Li just glanced at it and said, give the case to Chang'an County, and let the magistrate of Chang'an County investigate. Yin Li thought of something and said with a smile, in the future, all cases under the jurisdiction of Chang'an County will be handed over to Chang'an County first, no matter how difficult or difficult. When his subordinates heard it, Qi questioned, can the magistrate Guo suppress those people? There are a lot of nobles in Beijing, some dandy sons like to fight and play when they have nothing to do. Yin Li let out a sigh of relief and said with a smile, last night, His Majesty had already opened his mouth to transfer Tang He from the Ministry of Punishment to Chang'an County, and the edict should be down this morning. Tang He and Zhou Manchu are familiar with him, just let him ask. Hearing it, he immediately congratulated, with the help of Master Tang, you can rest for a while. The 2 counties in the capital are under the control of the Jingzhao House. In addition to the security of the entire capital, Yin Li has to go to train troops from time to time, but he is too busy. Yin Li also nodded, feeling that he could relax a lot. It's a pity that Yang Heshu is so focused on the Ministry of Households that he wants to go out to practice, otherwise, if he goes to Wanyan County, he will definitely be able to relax more. See you at 8 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1476. Tang He had just arrived at the Chang'an County office, and before the chair was hot, a new case was handed to him. He was amazed, the cases in the capital are so dense. As for early in the morning, Man Bao was seeing a doctor in Ji Shitang. She asked Lu Yunu and Zheng Gu to sit together and waited for them to see the patient's prescription before she saw it. When a patient left, Man Bao commented on the prescription prepared by the two of them. Now Zheng Gu is much stronger than before, at least she will use 2 of 10 recipes. When there is no space for patients, Man Bao will teach them in order according to the medical book she wrote, and occasionally check their memorization, and then assign homework, and it will be almost noon. Man Bao went to the backyard and squatted to watch the shopkeeper Zheng De teach Zhou Liru. Zhou Liru is still recognizing the medicinal materials, and he has repeatedly identified them, but he has already begun to recite some medicinal properties, but he is not familiar with them yet. Man Bao squatted aside, occasionally pointing at her when she froze. Shopkeeper Zheng made today's ointment, and when he looked up and saw that she was still there, he asked, "Are you going to see a doctor this afternoon?" "No," Man Bao said, "I heard that the kitchen made steamed pork today. I want to have lunch before leaving." Shopkeeper Zheng De, people who live in Kongai Yuanfang still lack steamed pork with noodles. Even Zheng Gu couldn't help but look up from the medical book. "Father, what you said sounds so sour. Go aside." When they were talking, a ladder was placed on the wall of their shop, and the shopkeeper of the Baohe Medical Center next door showed his head, and when he saw Man Bao, he said with a smile, "Dr. Zhou, I wish you a new house before you move." Man Bao narrowed his eyes with a smile, "You're welcome, Treasurer Shi, you are. Oh, I want to teach you a set of acupuncture methods. The medical book you exchanged with me last time stated that the spleen and stomach are deficient and cold. If the acupuncture method for young children needs to be changed as appropriate, it is not written on it, so." After thinking about it, Man Bao remembered, "Well, we have to start with the Yangming Zheng." Shopkeeper Zheng De secretly glared at Shopkeeper Shi. Shopkeeper Shi glanced back when Man Bao was not paying attention, and then turned to look at Man Bao with a smile on his face. When Master Tang arrived at Ji Shitang, Man Bao had already gone from Ji Shitang to the Baohe Medical Center next door, and he also brought Zheng Gu with him. It's unfortunate that Zheng Gu just learned this, and it is the most difficult to learn about children's diseases, and it is rare to have a patient for the test. Although shopkeeper Shi really didn't want Zheng Gu to come to the door, he was Zhou Man's apprentice, and Zhou Man was also a doctor of Ji Shitang. That is to say, Ji Shitang is tolerant to her when she is young. Although she is only placing orders, she does not insist on going to other pharmacies to see a doctor. If other doctors have chosen to place orders at this pharmacy, they can no longer be linked with other pharmacies. You can't control it in the dark, but you need to pay attention on the bright side. But not only the Baohe Medical Center next door often communicates with Manbao, but the doctors from the Baikatang opposite occasionally come to join in the fun at the entrance of Ji Shitang, and discuss medical skills with Manbao across the door. Dr. Ding and others who used to meet the doctors of the other two pharmacies who did not know each other in person would also run to join in the fun, so everyone was used to getting together to discuss medical skills from time to time. Manager Zheng was always indifferent on the face, as if he didn't like them going, but he never stopped them. Zheng Gu quietly told them, in fact, his father didn't think there was anything wrong with this, but the people in the family were worried that the doctors would leak some prescriptions or take the opportunity to collude with outsiders, so they were very disgusted with this matter. Come out for the people of the clan to see. Ji Shitang belongs to the entire Zheng family, while the treasurer Zhengde and the others are the second room. Now, because imperial physician Zheng is in the palace, they are relatively powerful, but they are not one-word halls. Therefore, Dr. Ding and the others are very restrained. Although they often get together to discuss medical skills, they are all squatting in front of the door of each house. If you say something, I will shout, and never go to the door of the other house. Except for the full treasure. She is relatively free, no matter which pharmacy she goes to, she is not too psychologically burdened. It was the first time for Zhenggu to go to the Baohe Medical Center next door. As soon as he entered the door, he couldn't help but look around with curiosity on his face. It feels weird, I always feel that he has the same guilty conscience as he came to spy on the military situation. Man Bao has gone straight to the patient. Shopkeeper She had already descended the ladder and ran from the backyard to the front hall, and directly asked her to look after the small patient. This child is only 6 years old, and he can't speak well. Do you see his face? Man Bao felt his pulse and looked at his tongue coating before asking his parents some questions, and then asked Zhenggu to come and take a look. Zhenggu hesitated. I look like dysentery. Shopkeeper She said, the doctor he saw earlier was also diagnosed with dysentery and prescribed the wrong prescription, so it has not been good. This child has taken too much bitter medicine, and now the spleen and stomach are getting weaker and he can no longer drink medicine, so I just wanted to use acupuncture first. Zhenggu looked at Man Bao. Man Bao nodded, it is indeed a deficiency of the spleen and stomach. Although some of his symptoms are similar to diarrhea, it is not. She didn't explain it to him now. After all, the patient's parents were waiting anxiously. Man Bao touched his stomach, and then said to Dr. Ning of the Baohe Medical Center who was holding the needle, first acupuncture and then moxibustion, you can use wormwood to warm the spleen and stomach. Immediately someone went to get moxa sticks. Man Bao said, let's go to Zhongwan first. The doctors who were idle all came together to observe. Man Bao didn't do it in person. This is also a rule, not an emergency. Whoever this is a patient will come by himself. She can give pointers at most. Master Tang changed into the casual clothes and entered the Ji Shitang, and then opened his mouth to look for Man Bao. The man looked at Master Tang and saw that his face was ruddy, and he didn't look like he was going to see a doctor, so he asked with a smile, Lang Jun wants to invite a patient to see a doctor. No, a friend is visiting. After confirming that the patient was not the patient who would be snatched by the hospital next door, he smiled and pointed to the hospital next door. Dr. Zhou Xiao is in the hospital next door, you can see it as soon as you enter. Master Tang was startled and asked, why, she has changed hospitals. That's not true. Our Dr. Zhou Xiao has always been in our pharmacy. She gave instructions in the past, he said proudly but in a low voice. The doctor from the hospital next door often comes to ask our Dr. Zhou Xiao for advice. Master Tang was amused, but nodded in agreement with a stern face. Yes, Dr. Zhou is a genius doctor after all, and there is nothing to say about medical skills. He was transferred to the Boal Medical Center next door. The child was stabbed with needles and couldn't help groaning. Man Bao touched his face and smiled and asked, it doesn't hurt, what are you humming? After thinking about it, she said, since you can't take medicine, why don't you try a medicinal diet? Shopkeeper She immediately handed her the pen and ink, and said with a smile, did Dr. Zhou leave a recipe? Man Bao wrote him one, and was happily sent out by shopkeeper She. Master Tang raised his hand, but people couldn't see it at all. Man Bao was sent to the door, and she returned to Ji Shitang in 2 steps. Zhenggu discussed this illness with her. How do you distinguish between diarrhea and deficiency of the spleen and stomach? See you at 10 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1477. The 2 symptoms are not difficult to distinguish, but the child's pulse is not obvious, and the stool is loose and thin, which makes people misunderstand that it is diarrhea. Manbajan was talking to him about how to identify this disease. As soon as he looked up and saw Master Tang, he nodded to him, and after talking to Zhenggu, he turned around to salute him. "Brother Tang, why are you here?" Master Tang smiled and asked, "Can you go? Let's talk on the way." Man Bao turned around and went back to get the medicine box. After talking to Zhou Liru, he followed Master Tang out. Before leaving, she glanced at the back kitchen regretfully. The tip of her nose had already smelled the aroma of steamed pork. Man Bao put the medicine box on the car, glanced at Master Tang's horse, and asked, "Brother Tang, where are we going?" "Go to your house." Master Tang handed over the horse to Chang Sui, and went directly to Daji's carriage with her, saying, "Let's talk in the car." Man Bao sat in his seat and was very curious. "What are you going to do at my house?" She thought he was going to invite her to dinner. Master Tang asked with a smile, "Your fourth brother is back?" Man Bao nodded. "I heard that he is doing tea business with Hu Shang." Man Bao nodded, puzzled. "What's wrong? Do you know the origin of those Hu merchants?" Master Tang asked. "I heard that they have been buying salt since the first month." Man Bao said, "What they bought was salt, not iron. What are they afraid of?" Master Tang tapped her on the head and smiled. "Don't make trouble, others don't know, don't you know? Salt is as important as iron." After thinking about it, Man Bao said, "My fourth brother only does tea business with them. You have to ask them about salt." Master Tang nodded, "I'll ask now." Man Bao. Co-authoring is a ride for her. Master Tang said, "I'm wearing civilian clothes. When I get to your house, don't forget my identity." He said, "On the first day of my appointment today, I learned that the people from Jingzhou Mansion have been staring at them." Man Bao asked curiously, "Does the Ministry of Punishment still manage this matter? Shouldn't Chang'an County and Wanyan County handle it?" Master Tang sighed, "Unfortunately, I am the magistrate of Chang'an County." Man Bao was stunned for a moment and then thought about it, and said, "Reassigned." Master Tang sighed. The magistrate of Chang'an County is not easy to do. When he arrived at Zhou's house, Man Bao handed over the medicine box to Daji, and directly led Master Tang to find her fourth brother. Chu Youlang was taking Aludun and the others to see the tea leaves, and each type of tea was soaked in water for them to drink. As a result, they did not only drink tea at all, but chewed together with the tea leaves. Thursel Lang looked bitter, but the family ate it with gusto and said, "It's definitely better to cook it with our milk, and it's just right with meat." Fourth brother, Man Bao stood in front of the courtyard door, beckoned to him, and brought someone to him, and Tang Dere came out from behind the door and said a few words to him. Thursday Lang frowned slightly, but he quickly calmed down, and directly led Master Tang to meet the few Hu people in Aludun. Aludun looked at Master Tang curiously, and felt that the clothes on his body were particularly beautiful. Chushulang was half in nonsense, half in Chinese, and then introduced him with his hands. "Aludun, this is my sister, this is my friend. I heard that you are visiting, so I came to see you and meet you." Friend. Master Tang can also speak the Hu language on the grasslands, and they can barely understand the Chinese of Aludun, so everyone sat down and communicated. But Chu Youlang felt tired listening to them chatting like this, so he simply asked Master Tang, "Aludun, why do you go to buy salt every day?" When he mentioned this, Aludun couldn't help complaining, "You people from the Central Plains are too stingy, you can only buy 1 liter each time you enter the store." When his friends heard this, they nodded again and again, "Too stingy." Master Tang hesitated for a while and couldn't help but ask, "Why do you want so much salt?" "Take back the tribe," Aludun gestured, "I have to travel so far to buy salt in my hometown. 1 liter of salt costs 3 sheep. Here, we can buy it for the price of 1 sheep. Already. The partner on the side added, "It's not too hard." "Yes, our salt is too bitter, yours is good." Master Tang asked, "Now you buy enough salt for your tribe to use for a year, right?" "Enough," Aludun said, "but I plan to bring some for my mother tribe's tribe. 1 liter of salt will be enough for 2 sheep. Thursday Lang couldn't help but give a thumbs up. "You are really amazing, you can make so much money when you change your hands." Aludun said embarrassedly, "I need to pay for the toll. By the way, the sheep here are very expensive. Do you want sheep in your family?" He said, "The sheep in our bald department are particularly good and delicious." Thursday Lang shook his head, "My family can't eat so many sheep." Manbao suddenly remembered something and asked, "Are there any cows?" "Our family is short of cows." Chu Hulang quickly stopped her and said, "Don't, Master Bai brought 2 cows to our house when he was in the 9th grade, saying that you bought them for the money, 1 male and 1 female, the yard of the house could not be put down for a while, and they were all put in the small house. If you go to the courtyard, if you buy it again, our family will have to buy another land to build a cowshed." And taking a cow home from so far away, how hard did he think about it? Master Tang couldn't help but glanced at him and pointed at him, "Although your family doesn't need cattle, maybe someone in the village needs them. The cattle in the grasslands are not bad." Manbao directly asked Aludun, "How do you sell your cattle?" Aludun scratched his head and said tentatively, 5 tea cakes for 1 cow." The anxious Thursday Lang calmed down after a while. He looked at Manbao and then at Master Tang. He immediately turned his head and asked Aludun with a smile, "Are you coming to the capital?" "That won't work. If we send it to the capital, we will have to add 20 more tea cakes." Thursday Lang said, 10, we also transport tea to the capital. In fact, your baldness department is closer to the capital than Armianzhou. The cost of pulling tea leaves is also very large." Aludun said, "Your tea is small, our cow is big, and it's still alive, it's hard to catch up. It's not just cattle. You will bring for next time. If you have good medicinal materials, I will also want them. By the way, I know a lot of medicine dealers. Some medicines on your grassland are very popular," Thursday Lang said with a smile. "My family also grows medicinal herbs, maybe I can exchange medicinal herbs with you." Master Tang already knew what he wanted to know, so he didn't sit here to disturb them in business, so he got up. Seeing that Zhou Lejun took out his abacus and slapped it aside, Manbao kept telling Thursday what the reserve price was. The two sides had already talked about gems from cattle and medicinal materials, so she was not very interested, and also got up and entertained Mr. Tang. "Go to the main hall." But Master Tang stood in the corridor with his hands behind his back, stretched out his hand and grabbed the peony tree in front of him, turned his head and said to Manbao, "There is a very strange peony tree in the backyard of my house, it has grown crazy recently. I heard Madam say that before the peony tree, did you sell it?" Manbao looked up at the sky and decided to continue the previous topic with him. "Swexiang Tang, isn't the grassland unstable? They just bought some salt, how come it's still a case?" Master Tang said, "Then there is also one in the peony tree palace." The two insisted on looking at each other for a while, but finally Manbao compromised, "Mrs. Tang knows everything. See you tomorrow." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1478. Of course, Master Tang knew that Madam knew everything, so he just reminded Manbao, "It's better to be cautious about this kind of flowers and plants that can produce abnormal shapes. Natural visions are ominous." He walked down the corridor slowly and said, "Although no one is paying attention now, no one can tell what will happen in the future, so it is best to be cautious from the beginning." Wasn't she too young to think of these things? Manbao nodded honestly, "She can only sell flowers now, and she absolutely can't keep plants." Apparently, Master Tang also knew, so he shook his head and stopped hitting her on this matter, but he was also curious, where did you get all these flowers? Man Bao said with a sad face, I bought it for a lot of money. It's strange that Master Tang believes in her. So I couldn't help but ask who bought it from. Man Bao kept her mouth shut and didn't speak. After several years of friendship, Master Tang knew her well. If she couldn't help talking to him, she would still have a chance to find out. If she kept her mouth shut, she would not tolerate anyone asked. Master Tang shook his head and stopped asking about it. Where will your family hold the banquet tomorrow? There is a small garden behind the main hall, and there is an open house. The male guests are there, and the female guests are in a courtyard at the back, which is near the garden, and everyone can go to the garden to play. This matter was arranged by Mrs. Lu and Zheng's, the menu was arranged by Saturday Lang, and the shopping was done by Friday Lang, so Man Bao didn't worry much. In the words of Mrs. Lu, they just have to play happily with their friends. However, there should still be some gifts. Today's housewarming wine, it's time to give some gifts to the neighbors. On Thursday, Lang packed 3 small jars of pickled vegetables, and also packed some old ginger, yam slices, etc. brought from home to make local specialties. Finally, he wrapped a few packets of snacks, divided them into 3 and handed them over to Man Bao. Okay, send it to the neighbors, and hurry back when it arrives at the door, the guests will come in a while. Man Bao thought for a while, then took a gift and said, I know the Du family well, I'll go to the Du family. But that familiarity doesn't seem very friendly, Bai Shan said, I'll accompany you. Zhou Lixiu said, let's go to Zhang's house, big brother Bai, you and second brother Bai go to son's house. Bai Dalan felt that the title was completely messed up, but he didn't want Zhou Lixiu to call him Uncle Bai, so he answered in a confused manner. He also took a gift and dragged Bai Erlang away. As soon as they arrived in the front yard, Lu Gui also prepared a carriage for them, and Zhou Lixiu was surprised, do you have to take a carriage to visit your neighbor's house? Man Bao didn't want to take the carriage either, just carry it and walk over there. After all, it was on the same street, and the Du family was next door, so it took a while to get there. Zhou Lixiu thought so too. But Bai Dalan insisted on taking the carriage. He dragged Bai Erlang into the carriage and said, go slowly, the Sun family is at the end, so far away, I won't leave. Bai Erlang took it seriously, so he got into the car with his brother. Man Bao and Bai Shan walked out of the door on the left, carrying things in both hands, and walked for a while before reaching the side door of the next house. If you want to be lazy, how can you go through the side door for the first time to give a gift? Man Bao could only keep up with his head down, I don't usually think about it, but I didn't expect it to be so farther than my house and yours. Bai Shan shook his head, no, it's just that the way from your house to mine is fun, so I don't think it's going to be long. This street is empty, so there should be more flowers and plants, so it looks comfortable and doesn't feel far when walking. When he arrived at the door of Du's house, Bai Shan knocked on the door. When the servant of the Du family opened the door, Man Bao gave him the post he had written in advance, and said with a smile, our family is the Zhou family next door, and we moved to a new house today, and I came here to bring some of our family's local specialties to the neighbors, please accept it with a smile. The housekeeper hurriedly took it with both hands, saying that he would tell the host, and invited the 2 of them into the house to drink tea and rest. Bai Shan declined, they were just here to give gifts, and they still had something to do at home. Seeing this, the servants watched them leave, and as soon as they left, they immediately picked up something and ran to the main courtyard to report. Zhou Lixiu and Bai Dalan didn't even enter the house, they were all in a hurry to go back to work, mainly because they were not familiar with others. Although Mrs. Lu had already inquired about the situation of the neighbors' houses in the past 2 days and had them memorize them, they didn't want to chat awkwardly with strangers, so they left after delivering the gifts. The only Du family who are somewhat familiar, at least have had a relationship with each other a few times. That relationship is not very good. The Du family brothers were blood drawn by Manbao last year. Although the main conflict was between the prince and the Su family and their Du family, Zhou Man was also involved, so the Du family kept Zhou Man on the prince's side. Du Shu tidied up his clothes and was about to go out. When he passed the main hall, he saw Du Yu turn the table on the table with a look of disgust. He glanced at it and asked, "Who sent this thing? There is also red cloth tied on it, and it looks like a wedding gift." Du Yu pointed to the west and said, "The Zhou family next door." Du Shu stopped, turned around to look, and found that there were still 2 packs of medicinal herbs, and said, "Is it their housewarming ceremony today? Let your sister-in-law prepare a gift for her later, see if she likes it or not. Come and sit if you like." "Brother, that's a doctor, and our family still wants to please a doctor." "That's the doctor who cured the prince," Du Shu emphasized. "Prince Gong is currently in confinement in the palace, and the princess is pregnant. You should not be with Prince Gong in the future." Du Yu said unconvinced, "I just read with Prince Gong and didn't do anything." He paused and said, "Even if the prince holds grudges, we don't need to please a doctor, right? It's just a doctor." Du Shu couldn't help but reached out and patted him. "Don't forget, she is not an ordinary doctor, her father was a Mianzhou shepherd posthumously presented by His Majesty, and she can be called a lady of the official family. That's just an official from the concubine, or a posthumous gift after death." "Why do you like being stubborn so much?" Du Shu said. "When I'm old, I say one sentence you can't say. Can you think about it before you say it? Or think about what I said. If she were an ordinary doctor, would the crown prince give her the house in Kongai Yuanfeng?" Du Shu sneered. "Don't look down on her. How many nobles live in Yangchangfang next door? How many were poor people before this dynasty? He came from a family, and was awarded a title just because he followed His Majesty to fight in the north and south." Du Yu opened his mouth to speak, but Du Shu simply grabbed a piece of dessert on the table and stuffed it into his mouth, then said, "Okay, don't worry about it. Besides the Zhou family and the Bai family living next door, the Bai family in Longzhou is also there. In the clan chronicle, it is not much different from our Du family. If you are really uncomfortable, you can just deal with the Bai family." After speaking, he turned around and said, "Remember to ask your sister-in-law to give gifts. I'm busy today, so I don't have time to stare at you. You are not allowed to go out and run around, do you hear?" Du Yu bit the dim sum in his mouth, muttered a few words, and then responded, "I wish the book friend Sparrow /U0026 Sparrow a happy birthday. Every year has today, every year has today, healthy and more beautiful. See you tomorrow." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1479. The gifts from Man Bao and the others were quickly sent out. It was not difficult for Zhou Lixu and Bai Dalan and the others. Basically, they heard that they were given by the newly moved neighbors. No matter what gifts were given, they all accepted them first. After accepting the gift and taking the post, the Sun family and Zhang family thought about it for a while and then asked people to stare at the Du family. "If the Du family only gives gifts and no one is there, we will only give gifts to no one. If the Du family comes to the door, we will also go to the next door." At the same time, Mrs. Lu was calling the children who had just returned to her. 2 more tables have been added to the front garden where the male guest is and the guest house where the female guest is. The names you have to memorize these 2 days. Did you take it all down? She mainly looked at Man Bao and Zhou Lijun, because Bai Shan and the others recited clan records since childhood. The 3 families of Du, Zhang, and Sun on a street are all on it, especially Bai Shan, the situation of noble families and officials' families in the capital. Everyone knows that Bai Dalan also knows a lot, and only Bai Erlang is more ignorant. Therefore, it is mainly Man Bao and Zhou Lejun, who will be in charge of the house after a while. Man Bao and Zhou Lejun nodded together. I wrote it all down, but I don't recognize anyone. Mrs. Lu smiled and said, it doesn't matter if you don't recognize them. Let Shan Baoniang and Mrs. Lu go with you in a while. They have seen several ladies. If they bring the children to the door, they will definitely introduce them. Don't stop, Shan Baoniang and Lu Mama will give you some advice. She patted Manbao and Zhou Lejun's hands soothingly, and said with a smile, we cannot invite other people for the time being, but it's not good for the neighbors to not invite them. Fortunately, there are only 3, and the rest are friends you invited, not difficult. This time, Mrs. Lu only sent a message to the in-laws of the Bai family, and none of the other relatives and friends. It was because they considered that the Bai family should not be overbearing, and the Zhou family was unfamiliar with the family's banquets. If they suddenly invited people they were not close to, they would be embarrassed if they showed a free and undisciplined attitude. Mrs. Lu knew all too well that some rude things in those families could be directly recorded in the music and passed down from generation to generation. She didn't want a few children to be frustrated at the beginning. So this time, in fact, except for the 3 neighbors, the rest are friends they invited by themselves. As for the Bai family's home, she didn't think they would come. Mrs. Liu's estimate was good. The in-laws of Bai's family really didn't come to the door, but she also sent someone a housewarming gift, just to maintain the affection on the face. But early in the morning, Yang Heshu brought Mrs. Kui there. The carriage marked by the Yang family stopped at the gate. After he got out of the car, he helped Mrs. Kui to get out of the car. The Thursday Lang, who was waiting at the door, knew him well, and immediately raised keeping up with a smile, Mr. Yang, you're here. Come in, please. Yang Heshu smiled and bowed, then turned to Kui and said, this is Man Bao's 4th brother. Kui, she said angrily, I have seen it, has my husband forgotten it? Just as they were talking, Master Tang and Madam Tang also came. It was a coincidence that Shai Zuolang and him were familiar with each other, so Bai Shan didn't need to say anything, and greeted the 2 of them with a smile. As a result, before they entered the gate, the Yin family's carriage also arrived, but this time 3 carriages came at once. Yin helped Chang Xiao's hand to get out of the car and looked behind. Big sister Yin took the 3 younger sisters out of the car with a solemn face. She raised her head to meet Bai Shan's surprised eyes and showed a shallow smile. When she turned her eyes to Yang Heshu, she couldn't help but straighten her back. The smile on his face was 2 points more real, but more reserved. And the 4th sister Yin, the 5th sister Yin, and the 6th sister Yin who were behind her even blushed, and they all bowed their heads and bowed to them, looking like they wanted to look up, but didn't dare. Choi. Madame Tang covered the smile on her face with a handkerchief, and took the initiative to wave to Sister Yin, Sister Hui is here too. Sister Yin led her 3 younger sisters forward, holding Madame Tang's hand with one hand and smiling, it's been a long time since I haven't seen Wang's sister, hello Sister Kui. Kui, she greeted with a smile, hello, Sister Hui. Bai Shan poked the stunned Man Bao's waist, Man Bao immediately recovered, and hurriedly invited the female relatives in. As for Lord Yang and others, it was naturally handed over to Shai Ruolang and the others. They were the first to come, and the rest of the guests hadn't come yet, so Shai Ro and the others sat down in the lobby to talk and wait with Master Yang. Man Bao led Mrs. Tang and the others to the backyard. Mrs. Tang looked at the potted plants in the corridor and said with a smile, this arrangement is quite unique, did you arrange it? Man Bao nodded again and again, does it look good? That's right, Mrs. Tang praised without hesitation, followed her slowly and asked, where is your banquet? There are 2 empty yards at the back, and the last one is connected to the garden, so it is placed there. He added, there is an open house at the back, the spring is just right, everyone can go and sit there. Then let's go directly. Master Tang and Man Bao were the most familiar and the most open-minded, and said directly, you senior brought me here after breakfast, and I'm not hungry now, nor I'm tired, I don't want to eat or rest, so I just go to the open house to sit and enjoy the scenery. I heard that there is a lake here at your house. Is that a lake? I thought it was a pond, a very small one. Man Bao smiled, but it looks like a crescent moon, and the water looks good too. Mrs. Tang. Big Sister Yin couldn't help but burst out laughing and said, this water is the living water connected to the moat, and if you turn it around, you will enter the palace. Not only does your house have it, but there is a big lake in the Wang family behind, and the water in your house is connected to the water. His home. After saying that, he glanced at Mrs. Tang and said, it was such a coincidence that the water just avoided Master Tang's mansion. I remember that when Master Tang was a child, because he liked the lake of the Wang family, he climbed over the wall and jumped to the Wang family's side. It happened that Mrs. Tang and her cousins were swimming in the lake, so they were taken as thieves. It was Yang Heshu who entered through the main entrance of Wang's house and hurried to the lake to save them. Later, the story kept circulating. Sister Yin was a few years older than them, and she was not married at the time. When the matter came out, they were very happy. Of course, she wouldn't say this in front of Mrs. Tang, but everyone present, except Man Bao, remembered it as soon as they heard it. Even sixth sister Yin had heard it from her sisters. Madame Tang blushed slightly, turned the topic away and said to Man Bao, so don't think that this lake is small, it's good to have it. Man Bao nodded, still surprised, so the back of my house is the Wang family's garden. Madame Tang nodded and said, that's my parents' house. I know that Grandma Lu has been making me carry it for the past 2 days. I have carried it down from the people around here, so your family is so close, don't you just go back to your mother's house if you want to? Madame Tang choked, nodded her forehead and said, is it possible for my parents to go back casually? See you at 4 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1480. While they were talking, they had already walked around to the garden, and refreshments had already been set in the open hall. Man Bao introduced to them, this is my second niece. Seeing Man Bao call a girl older than her a niece, they don't take it at all. In a big family, it is common for an 8-year-old grandfather and a 40-year-old grandnephew. Sitting in the open hall, Mrs. Tang asked who she had invited. Man Bao said, I invited some friends I know. Apart from you, the only female family members are my friend's second sister Fu, as well as a few young ladies from the Lu family, Li family, and Wang family. They were all officially made friends in the palace last time. Before that, she had seen a doctor at their home, but she didn't say much. When Madame Tang heard this, she was relieved. She was a girl who was familiar with others, and her temperament was not too bad. Madame Tang was about to ask more details when Zhou Liru came in and said, little aunt, second sister asked me to tell you that the second lady of the Fu family is here. Man Bao's eyes lit up, and he said to several people, I'll pick up someone, sister-in-law, you guys play first. After all, he ran away in a hurry. Madame Tang smiled and shook her head, raised her teacup to signal to Sister Yin and the others. Sister Yin smiled and raised her teacup to take a sip. Fu Wenyun came by herself. As soon as they met, she and Man Bao held hands. The two went inside together and asked, why didn't you bring the child? He's too young, Fu Wenyun said, it's hard to take him out, so I'll leave it at home. She took her hand and smiled and said, I wanted to come to accompany you early, and I'd go back afternoon. I didn't expect someone to come earlier than me. Man Bao smiled and said, Mrs. Tang and the others live nearby, so they came quickly. Fu Wenayun had never seen Mrs. Tang and the others, so Man Baolian took her hand to introduce Mrs. Tang and the others. There are not many people, and they are all friends of Man Bao, so the atmosphere is quite harmonious. Zhou Lijun and Zhou Liru helped Man Bao to keep welcoming guests home. Lu Huan's sister Lu Lirong made an appointment with Wang Zhenchu, the little lady of the Wang family, Li Ming, the little lady of the Li family, and Han Yi and Cheng Wei, the little ladies of the Han family and Cheng's family. Come together. They were Man Bao's best friends in the palace last time, and they bought flowers from her. They also had the best time with Princess Mingda, and they were about the same age as Man Bao, so last time Lu Huan went from white after Shan took the post to his sister, Man Bao simply sent them several posts. They are all here. The three unmarried sisters of the Yin family are all familiar with them. After all, they usually meet at banquets, so they get together to talk. There were only 4 married women left in the open house, Mrs. Tang, Mrs. Yang, Sister Yin, and Fu Wenayun. Li Ming turned his head and glanced at Chang Xian, then pulled Man Bao and asked, "Did Yang Heshu also come?" Man Bao nodded. Li Ming's eyes lit up and asked in a low voice, "Is it really as good looking as they say?" Man Bao was curious, "Have you not seen him?" Li Ming shook his head, "I used to live in my hometown with my grandmother, and I only came to the capital 3 years ago. Last time, I didn't watch my cousin's son, 100 Days Wine." Wang Zhenchu said, "I have 2 sisters who are a few years older than me, and they got married 2 years earlier. I heard that it is because he is not willing to talk when they meet each other. If they hadn't fought too fiercely back then, they might not have been able to get the Kui family." Girl. Man Bao frowned slightly. "Yang Shuexiang is good looking, but he is not so good looking, right? There are many good looking people in this world, and Madame Yang is not ugly. There are talented people in this world, and there are good looking people, but they are both good looking and talented, with good character, but few have such outstanding family backgrounds." Han Yi smiled while supporting Man Bao and Li Ming's shoulders, said, "You were not in the capital when you were young. I don't know how powerful Yang Heshu is. You see that he is better than Tang He now, but he is 3 years younger than him. Tang He was en Yinjin's Kuaza school, but Yang Heshu was admitted at a young age. When he was admitted to the Kuaza school, my father and my uncle beat up all 3 brothers, and I could listen to it every day. To their father to beat and scold them." Man Bao was stunned, thought for a moment and then said, "Bai Shan was also admitted to the Kuaza school. I also read their questions last year. I think if I did the same test, I should be able to pass the test." So she didn't envy Yang Heshu at all. Ladies, suddenly angry. Lu Lirong couldn't help but said, "Can you play the piano?" Man Bao, "I've learned something, do you want to play it?" Bai Shan and I borrow the piano, and they have it. Then can you draw, Li Ming? I'm fine with drawing. Man Bao, "I also learned a little bit." She paused and said, "Would you like to learn some medical science with me? Maybe it will be useful in the future." The 5 little girls were discouraged. Wang Zhenchu said, "I found the book you borrowed from me last time, but I found it in my study, but my father didn't allow me to borrow it. I'm copying it recently, etc. I'll send it to you after copying it." Man Bao is grateful. The Wang family has the largest collection of books, but unfortunately the Wang family has many rules and values books. She has been to the Wang family 3 times, twice to see a doctor, and once to find Wang Zhenchu. The last time Wang Zhenchu took her into the study, it was really a room full of books, and her eyes were straightened when she saw it, but unfortunately she was discovered soon and ran away. The other 4 little girls didn't like reading very much, so they couldn't get into their topic. When they finished talking, Chen Wei asked curiously, "Didn't you say that your 4th and 5th sisters-in-law are also here? Why don't you see them?" "Yes, I think it was Mrs. Bai who set the table in the guest house just now. She is your future mother-in-law." Man Bao said, my fourth sister-in-law is ill, and the fifth sister-in-law is also at a loss because she has to travel, and she has to take care of the child, so I won't come out today. After all, these daughters are very delicate, what if they get sick? Man Bao said, next time you come, I will introduce them to you. Fourth sister Yin looked around and saw that no one was coming, so she couldn't help but ask her, are we the only female guests today? Man Bao thought for a while and said, I'm the only one who invites you. Bai Shan and the others in front of them asked if there are any female guests. If so, my niece and the others will bring them here. Fourth sister Yin breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, I think it's fun to be just us, more comfortable. Chen Wei, yes, there were too many people in Li Shangshu's house last time. The garden is full of people, and many people have never seen it. Li Ming, you can just say it's messy, don't talk about you, my host is dizzy, and many people don't know each other. After a day, only by being pulled by adults to greet people, many of them come to Beijing to take the test. Family. Several people were talking freely, and the topic slowly dissipated. Chen Wei also pushed the fourth sister Yin and the fifth sister Yin, winked and said, you are going to get married in June, and since you are here today, it is better to let Man Bao give it to you. Take a look, it's better to be a man after entering the husband's house. See you at 8 p.m.